Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about gift Pokemon. These ones are pretty self-explanatory because they're exactly as they sound. They're Pokemon that are given to you as gifts throughout the course of your playthrough. Any Pokemon handed to you, you don't directly have to catch. Now, arguably, some of the event Pokemon like Diancie fall into this. But I won't be using those since they qualify as event Pokemon last I checked. I'll be specifically going through the strongest Pokemon you receive in the game as gifts. However, there is one exception to this rule, and that's the starter Pokemon, including specifically the Pokemon Yellow Pikachu, Partner Pikachu, and Partner Eevee. The reason I will not be using them is because it would be way too easy to just put all the starters, since they are pretty good in your playthrough on this list. I will also not consider gift Pokemon that you can only acquire in the post-game. If the gift isn't a fully evolved Pokemon, which they typically aren't, I will cover what they evolve into as well. Anywho, let's get started. I am willing to go on record and say that not very much tops that $500 Magikarp, even if it is only obtained in the Kanto games, where it isn't particularly at its full power due to the physical and special split not existing until Generation 4. Gyarados has still found a way to be all-reliable. It can take you around the region with Surf, and its move pool is admittedly not the best via level up. However, the TMs it can get are pretty helpful throughout your playthrough. Fire Blast, Blizzard, Thunderbolt, and Hyper Beam are personal favorites, because it's always funny to see water types use moves they shouldn't be able to. Hyper Beam in Gen 1 also has a glitch where if you KO something with it, you don't have to recharge. Gyarados happens to just be a pretty big wall of stats that, yeah, isn't at its peak in Gen 1, but it still does have useful tools. I think the only part of the game where you don't want to use it is Erica's gym. I don't know about that one, Past Mystic. 100 special attack from an Ice Beam on Gyarados is gonna mess up Erica pretty good, so actually use it. It's good early game, good through some of the mid game, and is a monster by the end game. It's always a good addition to the team. This one for me is between the extreme speed Dratini you get from the Elder after you beat Claire, or the Tyrogue you can randomly get from an egg from the Daycare Man on Route 34. Or if you go through Mount Mortar, you can also get a Tyrogue as proof for defeating the Karate Master. You'd think, given that I like Jinx, I'd put it on here, especially since it's actually pretty good in Gen 2 OU and has a rather solid matchup versus Chuck, Claire, along with two of the Elite Four members, Lance's Dragonites, and all of Team Rocket. And upon telling myself all this information, I realized that Tyrogue and its evolutions having no viable coverage until Generation 4 dampers it. And Dratini is too late in the game to be a viable asset, especially with the fact that you won't be seeing a Dragonite until the post-game. This random Smoochum is the best option you have for a playthrough, with Jinx's access to Ice Punch via TMs in the Goldenrod department store, and if you're patient with your Smoochum and want to have a late game beast, it gets Psychic at level 37, so you don't have to wait to get the Psychic TM later in the game. As I'm going through the options, nothing in this generation set of Giftmons can really get the 1-up and good luck on a Smoochum. So, do I count trades as gifts? The answer is yes. Mostly because for Generation 3, there are a lack of better options. It's hard to justify why not in cast form, and Anorith and Lileep feel a little too out of the way to be considered gifts. Rustboro City happens to be a personal favorite trade of mine in Hoenn, and that's trading Slackoth for Makuhita. Yeah, I know, your starter by level 16 can beat the gym, and you really don't need to have this to beat Roxanne. But I actually happen to be incredibly fond of Hariyama, as I believe you all may have figured out when I went over Pokemon you still haven't used in Scarlet and Violet, plus the appearances it's made on the Hoenn Best teams. Guts is an excellent ability, and access to Fake Out, Rock Tomb, Brick Break, and Earthquake over the course of the game never hurt anybody. It also gets Secret Power as a TM, so those big hands that it has can open up your secret base for you without much issue at all. Now, could I have talked about the gift Celebi you get from the GameCube spin-off games that you transferred to your Game Boy Advance cartridge? Or even the Pokemon Colosseum's bonus disc for Jirachi? Probably. However, is it really a gift if you're going out of your way to buy a GameCube and the Pokemon games for it, just so you can have a Celebi or Jirachi? I don't believe so. Any of the gift Eevees can go on this list for various reasons. Bill gives you a level 5 Eevee after you beat Whitney and see him in Ecruteak, only to go back to Goldenrod and talk to him. BB gives you one in Hearthome City for free, no questions asked. Also, sorry if I mispronounced that name, let me know in the comments below how it's actually pronounced. A cowgirl at Paniola Ranch also gives you an Eevee egg once again, no questions asked. It's hard to really say which Eevee is the best when it can evolve into any and everything. I don't even want to try to act like I know which one's the best, so I just won't. Instead, just know that having the ability to fill a gap in your team by being able to pick and choose what new type to add to your team is very good, and it's definitely warranted itself a spot on the list. Now, my personal preference is the Eevee that Bill gives you, because I can go get the water, thunder, and fire stones from the Pokeathlon Dome, and Ditto happens to be right there on Route 34 near Goldenrod. So with enough time, I can have almost all the Eevees. The only issue is that, last I checked, you can't get Glaceon and Leafeon in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. But being able to take Bill's Eevee, and just being able to get 5 more evolutions, is good enough for me. I already know I'm gonna get flack for not talking about the Riolu egg Riley gives you at Iron Island. Lucario is incredible, and it would be here if Eevee didn't have the ability to evolve into 5 other forms at this point in the series. Still though, Lucario is powerful, and I at least wanted to mention it. The point where you get it in the game is a little late, but regardless, it's still incredibly good. While I won't be counting some fossils as gift Pokemon due to the fact that you have to go out of your way to get some of them, I consider Archen and Tortuga to practically be gifts. You get one of their fossils, go to Nacrene City, and then bam, it's that easy. Now, which one did you choose? Well, assuming you played blind, it could have gone either way. I chose the Plume fossil, and I don't regret that decision in the slightest. Don't get me wrong, until level 37, it isn't doing all that much. However, once it evolves into Archeops, you're practically set up for a decent bit of the game. Base 140 attack, 110 speed, access to acrobatics by level up, which also doubles if you're not using a held item, and then it has access to U-turn, crunch, and rock slide either by late game level up or as a TM in Mistralton Cave. Don't get me wrong, Defeatist is a horrible ability, but as we in the hyper offense business say, the amount of damage they can do to us doesn't matter if we can OHKO them first. And that is what something of Archeops' stat line is gonna do to the entirety of Pokemon Black and White, from like Skyla all the way until the Elite Four. And if you played Pokemon White and don't use Zekrom on your party, Archeops can easily defeat the Reshiram menace with a super effective Rock Slide. For Black and White 2, I felt that the gift Zorua you get from Rude is the best choice. I only mention it here because you actually can't get the fossils in Black and White 2 until the post-game. The only other competition it has is the Deerling you can get from the Institute researcher at the Weather Institute. It does have its hidden ability Serene Grace, but even then, Zoroark still tops this. Great stats, decent coverage pool, and is really the only Pokemon you can get in Black and White 2 as a gift that isn't post-game. It sucks most of these are locked behind that. You know, in hindsight, it's weird for me to think about the absurdly good gifts you receive in Gen 6. We get a cosplay Pikachu, which I quite enjoy using, and then the Eon duo equipped with Megas, which are pretty good for getting you through Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. But that's somehow not even the best thing the 3DS just gives you to play with. From the moment you beat Corina and Kalos and go to challenge her atop the Tower of Mastery to the Lucario mirror match, you get your hands on a literal uber tier threat. Mega Lucario for free. Just like that. They really gave you a Pokemon with those stats. Adaptability, Power-Up Punch, Swords Dance by level up, and once you find the move reminder, you can get Close Combat. The only thing wrong with it is that it doesn't get good Steel-type moves until the post-game. But that's fine. You have everything else you need over the course of the game, except for specifically Olympia Psychic types and Novice Talonflame. Mega Lucario can essentially solo the game. It can do every fight for you while the rest of your team just chills in the back and gains free experience off of Generation 6's amazing experience share. Do I even need to act like this is a question? Sure, it's admittedly a little bit too late in the game for my tastes, but after you beat Ultra Necrozma, the Ultra Recon Squad gives you a Poipole. At that point, all you gotta do is remember Dragon Pulse at level 1 with the hard skill, and you get your hands on the beast that is Naganadel. Don't get me wrong, Generation 7 has a lot of gift Pokemon they give you earlier in the game, and all of them will be more helpful, because they're actually there to join your team. But I can't ignore the late game demon that can basically do whatever it wants from the moment it evolves from Poipole. Nasty Plot, Flamethrower, Sludge Bomb, and Dragon Pulse is really all you need, coming off of a base 127 special attack and a base 121 speed, equipped with the ability Beast Boost to get your Naganadel snowballing out of control before the opposition even knows it. Sure, there are more consistent gift Pokemon for earlier in the game, but they all pale in comparison to this broken late game unit. So there are so many Pokemon considered gifts in Generation 8, that having to determine which one is the best is causing me a headache, especially for a playthrough. Even if I broke my rule and went with Leon's Charmander, you get it in the post-game. Pikachu and Eevee require you to have Let's Go saved on your Switch, the fossils feel pretty much out of the way to get, Type Null is also locked to the post-game, and anything that requires you to buy the DLC feels pretty out of the way for a casual playthrough. Thus, there is only one gift Pokemon that makes sense to be here, and it's entirely by default. Toxel can be obtained in the Pokemon Nursery on Route 5, and it's a pretty okay asset for your team. Its Evolve form has okay stats for a playthrough, some solid offensive coverage with Poison and Electric, and its design is actually pretty sick. I kind of wish it had the G-Max factor, so it could at least be a cooler Toxtricity variant, but alas. Let's see what specific moves we get to work with. So while early in the game it isn't particularly good, it does become worth it over time with Boom Burst, Overdrive, then a Shock if you couldn't get Sludge Bomb, and Shift Gear for setup. It's nothing too spectacular, but it's the best we have to work with without having to pay for the Gen 8 DLC. Now, if you want my opinions on the best gift Pokemon overall for this gen, after finding 100 of some guy's lost Diglett, and you pick Scorbunny as your starter, you can get your hands on an Intimidate Litten in the Isle of Armor. This Isle of Armor is also the same place you can get Cubfu. I don't think I need to explain why Incineroar is good, nor do I need to explain why Urshifu is my sleep paralysis demon. It's come full circle, hasn't it? From being an underrated steel type to being the worst steel type you can use in Scarlet and Violet. But finally, please do not copyright me, Nintendo. Please do not copyright me, Nintendo. Please do not copyright me, Nintendo. Please do not copy. I have waited oh so long for this moment, as it's the only gift Pokemon available that isn't a starter, or doesn't, I don't know, show up for the very last fight of the main game only. Perserker is finally where it's at. After all, there isn't a single gift Pokemon that follows the credentials, and therefore, by default, it is the best one. So, do I count trades as gifts? The answer is yes. Hey, no. Flashback? This is Perserker's moment in the sun, dammit. This is his happy ending to the story. You cannot take this from me. I don't know what I expected to happen by this point, but regardless, I guess Wooper and Quagsire are here. You two just couldn't let Perserker have this one, could you? You just had to show up and take this away. But I guess I'll talk about you two again. Have an excellent defensive typing, we can get you in Koskarafa by trading a Paldean Wooper, Water Absorb and Unaware are both very solid abilities, and Recover via the Mirror Herb is incredibly awesome. Are you happy now? Because I'm leaving. I need to go build some Regulation D teams with Perserker and Goldango so I can calm down a bit, as I am a little bit salty. You two just continue to be unaware of the damage you do to my mental state. Stupid beady-eyed salamanders. Please don't hate me. I love Quagsire and Wooper. Just a little bit upset that Perserker couldn't have its moment. Come on, man. And that's it for the strongest gift Pokemon of each gen. What'd you guys think? Is there something we missed? Is there a gift Pokemon you believe to be the end-all be-all strongest gift Pokemon we've ever received? What do you guys want me to talk about next? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go and replay Oras just so I can go look at all the amazing Pikachu outfits.